This is Jeremy Jorgensen, host of the Why Edify podcast, proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Milletto. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. With Dr. Steve Milletto.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today it's just me, and I'm talking with you about formative assessment. That's right. We're going to talk about what it is and why it exists, and I'm talking about a place to go and find resources, and most definitely why you should make use of it. Let's go back in history and talk a little bit about this person in front of you, Steve. When he was a kid, he learned to play a game, and the game that he learned to play was, I don't want to be called to the board. Therefore, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep you thinking that I don't need to go to the board. That's right. And, they may not have used the terms formative assessment and such, but there were teachers that checked to see if you were getting what they were talking about, right? If they wanted to see if you were understanding it. But there were some who were very good at not dealing with that. Instead, you get like a 3-week quiz, a 6-week quiz, a 9-week quiz, and what these really were tests, right? They're not checking to see what you're understanding. It has more to do with getting a grade, to put a grade in the grade book for where you are at that time. Yeah, what I'm focused on here is the idea of taking time to figure out what the kid knows so that you can make adjustments to get the child further up where they need to be. I hope that makes sense, because so often we run into this problem of, we got a lot going on. We may have 150 kids that we're responsible for, and we're moving forward. And so someone says to us, maybe one day you overhear a conversation at lunch or something like this. Someone says, so what do you do to check to see if the kids are keeping up with you? And someone else says, well, I once in a while I do a thumbs up and thumbs down. And you go, yeah, that's something I could do. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about here, all right? We're talking about understanding that you need to check for understanding. I hope this is going to get clearer than mud here in just a second, because let's go back to Steve. I was a good kid. I learned to play this game, and it went like this. I didn't get in trouble. I turned in my homework. I did my homework as best as I possibly could. During class, I didn't talk with my friends, and I didn't let them talk with me. Yeah, no way. I told them before class. I'd say, don't talk to me during class because I'm just going to ignore you. I'm not going to talk with you. And I would sit, as you enter the room, teacher's looking out of the classroom, I would sit on the teacher's left someplace over, not too far from the door, not right against the wall, but maybe one row in and maybe 2 rows back from the front, because I'm not going to be right in the front and I'm not going to be right there next to the door. But that's kind of the area that I staked out, right? And that way, as long as I shooed my friends away, I could look at you if you were the classroom teacher and whatever you were talking about. So if you gave us some papers, if you were talking at the board, one of the things it looked like is that I'm taking notes. That's right. I'm a diligent student, and I'm sitting there taking notes in my notebook. Now, unless you came over and specifically looked at those notes in my notebook, you really didn't know if I was following you. But because I was a good kid, I turned things in on time, I did what you asked me, I didn't disrupt class, you just assume that I was taking notes. So if you'd come over to my notebook, what you probably would have seen was me drawing superheroes, all kinds of, space creatures, some new sorts of vehicle with a massive engine in it, something like that. It's if you've ever read the cartoon Calvin and Hobbes, I can really connect with Calvin. All right. And I got to tell you that this is the game that I played, if you allowed me to. Remember, there were some teachers who did not allow me to do that, but there were many who did. And what this, kept me from doing was going to the board, or didn't allow them, they didn't stop to check to see if I understood what they were doing. And so the first time they might get an inkling of whether I was following them might be at that 3 or 6 week quiz moment. And the problem with that is that I'm going to get a grade for that. And if you haven't checked before to see if I'm getting it, yeah, I may not be able to fake it by the time I get there. One of my all-time favorite ones was in 10th grade, the book Jane Eyre. For all of you who love that story and other books written in that vein, all the power to you. But that did not do anything for me, and I tried to fake it. We had these chapter quizzes, and the chapter quizzes were very specific about the information that they were looking for. And I discovered that I could not fake it, which was rough, all right? And those grades stayed in the grade book. And so I had to overcome those. I had to do better on other things. But that book was not something that I was really enthralled with, and I tried to do my best to sneak my way through that by faking it. Yeah, that was the one that caught me. All right, but in other classes, not so much, right? So let's talk about the kids that are in your classes today. When you look at that roster, how many of those kids that are in your classes, are you actually sure that you understand where they are and what they know about what you're talking about? What do you think? Have you done anything to figure that out? Have you said, all right, class, everybody get it? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Bueller? Well, if you think that's checking for understanding, oh, no, not at all. And, thumbs up, thumbs down is good just for like a feel for the climate, but I got to tell you, if you're using thumbs up, thumbs down for figuring out whether they get it or not, that's not good, because if you're me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the kid next to me and my friend on the right of me, and I'm probably going to go whichever direction they go. So if they both put their thumbs up, my thumb's going up. If they both put the thumbs down, my thumb's going down. And guess what? That gave you no inkling of whether I got it or not. Yeah, that was Steve in class. And like I said, there were some teachers who, they did not do that. They checked for understanding. They gave you these little moments where you had to share what you knew. They might ask you a specific question or whatever. And it's just too bad, though, that some of these others did a little bit more checking for understanding. Because, one of the things I want to make sure that I mention here is what formative assessment is. Formative assessment is when you plan purposefully to check to see if the kids are getting it or not, and you understand that it's not graded. All right? And you're going to use this information that you gather, and you're going to make adjustments to how you're teaching and what you're teaching. And so it lends itself really well to, you do a little bit of this formative assessment. You might make up some small groups and do some small group instruction for a little bit. Or you might do some intensive one-on-one type instruction, or maybe a small group of like 5 to 1, and where you're spending time kind of bringing them up to where you think they need to be while the others are working on moving forward. I mean, there's different ways you could use small group instruction to help you make this work. But the whole point is that you're checking to see if the kids are getting it. It's not graded, it's purposeful, which means that you have planned in your plans. You have put in your lesson plans that this is when I'm going to use formative assessment. This is what I'm thinking about using, and I'm going to use it to get information so that I can stop, make adjustments to instruction, and decide whether I can move forward, if I need to take a step backwards, or what I need to do in order to make sure that I'm not losing the kids. That's so important. And by the way, one of the things that has to go with this, you've heard me say it multiple times, you can't grade this stuff. You're not giving them grades over what they don't know, because that's what you're trying to figure out. You're trying to figure out what they get and they don't get. And if you're giving them grades on that, oh my gosh, that's not going to help them, and it's not going to help you. Formative assessment, a big part about it is that you are trying to gauge whether they're getting what you're talking about or not. And if they aren't, you're backing up the trailer You're going to go at it again, but a little differently this time based upon the information, the data that you gathered. So one of the other things that you hear me talking about with formative assessment is that it's purposeful. That means that you have to plan. You have to put it in your lesson plans that I'm going to do this at this moment in my teaching. And then I'm going to follow up and possibly do another one at this moment in my teaching. And you put it in those lesson plans and you put down what it is you're going to do. That stops something where you go, oh, I forgot to put any formative assessment into my talk here. So I'm going to make sure that I add it right now. All right, everybody, you get it? Anybody got any questions? Anybody? And the biggest problem with that is that most kids are just kind of looking around going, I'm going to say whatever somebody else says. Just like I told you earlier with the thumbs up, thumbs down, it's quite possible that's going to work the same way. What I want to make sure that as we're getting close to wrapping this little segment up. So one of the things that I want to make sure that I'm sharing here is that there are kids in your classroom like me who what they're trying to do is to avoid getting called to the board or avoid you asking them a question. Because, like going back to me as a kid, one of the things I knew is that I'm a good kid, therefore you're probably not going to call on me because you're going to call on the kids who might cause trouble if you don't call on them, or you're going to call on the kids who know all of it, or at least you think they know all of it. And so if I can be in that middle area, I got it made because you're not going to call on me. And if I don't go to that board, I'm not going to look bad in front of my friends or peers or anybody else that's in that class. Whether it was real or not, I imagined that if I went up there, I might make myself look foolish. Therefore, I don't want to go up there. So do whatever you can to stay away from being called to the board. Yeah, well, see, this is where formative assessment just can be such a huge help. Because there's so many different types of formative assessment. Matter of fact, one of the things I want to make sure I point out is that in my links, I'm going to have a link to my Pinterest account. And I specifically have a board there called Formative Assessment. And I hope you'll go there because I have links to all kinds of cool formative assessments out there. Ones that involve craft sticks, ones that involve stickies, ones that involve mini whiteboards, which are all my all-time favorite. Notice these are low-tech ones. I've also got high-tech ones in there like Padlet and the spinning wheel one and a couple others that you can make use of for formative assessment. But I love the low-tech ones. And I love them because, number one, they don't take a lot of money. They don't take subscriptions. And number two, most kids are going to look at you, and unless you say something weird, they're not going to think that you're going to even come close to grading it. This is something I started to mention before, is that one of the problems with a lot of times with an adult in the classroom is that they'll say, well, I got to grade everything because the kids are expecting it. Yeah, I got to tell you, they're only expecting it because you've set that expectation that everything's graded. So if you just hand out the stickies or you give out the mini whiteboards and then you go around looking to see if they're getting it or not, hey, they're not expecting that to be graded. Oh, far from anything like that. So keep in mind, I've got a whole bunch of these examples in my Pinterest board called Formative Assessment. And you'll see that link in the show notes. As we're wrapping this up, one of the things that I got to make sure that I say again is that formative assessment is checking to see what the kids get and what they don't get, and then using that information to adjust your instruction. It's not graded. And it's done purposefully, which means that you put it in your lesson plans that I'm going to be focused on these types of formative assessment. There's some awesome tools out there. I've put links to many of them in my Pinterest board titled Formative Assessment. I hope you'll go there. When next we come together, I'm going to share a little bit about using mini whiteboards and stickies. I got some great ideas for you there. Hey, you have been listening to Teaching Learning Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching Learning Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.